At the company's IPO celebration gala, my husband said he had to accompany an important investor on a deep-sea fishing trip. I thoughtfully helped him straighten his tie, then immediately accessed the company's financial system. The records showed that millions in contingency funds had just been transferred to a sales account for a luxury villa. I asked a friend to retrieve the real-time surveillance footage from the luxury real estate office. On screen, he was embracing a flirtatious intern, with a look of tenderness I had never seen before. The woman pointed to a detached house on the model display. "Ethan, is this house really going to be in my name?" Ethan smiled gently. "Yes, it's a gift for you and the baby." My heart instantly went cold. Just then, an investigation call from the SEC came in, inquiring about the whereabouts of an abnormal fund transfer. Watching the two of them flirting on the monitor, I pressed the speakerphone button and calmly replied, "Ma'am, I am officially reporting my husband, Ethan, for suspected major embezzlement and money laundering, and he is attempting to escape the country." As soon as I spoke, director's tone immediately turned serious. "Ms. Lila, do you know what you're saying? This is a serious crime. Are you sure?" On the monitor, Ethan's personal cell phone began ringing off the hook. He glanced at the screen. It was a warning call from the company's legal department. His hand trembled, and he hung up immediately, then called me back. I watched the words husband flashing on the screen, and with a cold smile, I pressed mute. Speaking into the phone, I steadily repeated, "Director, Ethan claimed he was accompanying an investor today, but he actually went to a luxury neighborhood. The $50 million in contingency funds are unaccounted for. He is now trying to launder money through a property purchase agreement, and I suspect he plans to escape the country." The gravity of my words silenced him for a few seconds. "Ms. Lila, secure the evidence, don't show yourself, and stay safe. The crimes officers are already en route and will arrive in 5 minutes." Director said, then slammed down the phone. I put my phone away and stared at the screen. Ethan's usual elite demeanor had completely crumbled. He shoved the woman aside, his pen flying from his grasp, relentlessly dialing my number while frantically rushing towards the back exit of the luxury real estate office. Behind him, the woman shrieked, "Ethan, where are you going? The contract hasn't been signed yet. This house." Ethan didn't even turn his head. There was no trace of the tenderness he had shown her moments ago, only the desperate panic of someone trying to save himself. Too late, unfortunately. Just a few minutes later, piercing sirens echoed through the luxury neighborhood. 3 police cars blocked the entrance to the luxury real estate office, completely sealing off the road. Several economic crimes officers in uniform jumped out of the cars. They rushed into the lobby and immediately intercepted Ethan, who had just reached the door. "Ethan, we are from the city economic. We suspect you are involved in embezzlement. Come with us." Ethan's face, which had been so full of vigor moments before, instantly turned as white as paper. The cold handcuffs clicked shut with a snap. Before being escorted into the police car, he looked up sharply and saw me standing by the road. His eyes nearly popped out, veins throbbing in his neck. "Lila." He didn't care about his image anymore and roared at me, "Are you insane? This is company money. You've blown things up so much, what about the company's IPO?" "I was doing it for the company's cash flow." I curled my lips. Yes, I knew he wasn't trying to escape. He was just misappropriating company funds to buy a luxury home for his mistress. He was just playing the doting CEO for his mistress while I was desperately trying to manage investors. He just wanted to have a double life, a stab the home and a wild life outside. But why should I listen to his explanations? When you made fraudulent books and used company funds, why didn't you think that was a red line? The police didn't give him a chance to yell any further, pressing him into the car and slamming the door shut. The mistress was also brought out by the police to assist with the investigation. She was already terrified, her makeup smeared with tears. As she passed my car, she suddenly went crazy, trying to rush towards me. "Did you call the police? You vile bitch, you old hag. You're just jealous Ethan bought me a house." The police reacted quickly and blocked her. I glanced at her cosmetic surgery face and the purchase agreement clutched tightly in her hand. "Cloudy," I softly uttered the name of the villa. The woman froze. "Your love nest, right?" I smiled, but the warmth didn't reach my eyes. There was a knot in my chest. "That's ill-gotten gains used to buy stolen goods. The court will quickly seize and auction it off, and you'll get nothing at all." The blare of sirens around me was a headache, yet I felt the world was eerily quiet. "Ethan, you ruined my home, so I will ensure you lose your reputation and everything you have in this industry." I was taken to the economic unit interrogation room, identified as a key informant. Sitting opposite me was director of the economic unit, a man in his 40s with a sharp gaze, clearly a seasoned veteran of economic crime investigations. He offered me an unopened bottle of bottled water, his tone considerably calmer. Ms. Lila, don't be nervous. Please tell me in detail about the information you have regarding Ethan's alleged crimes. I twisted open the bottle and took a sip, my hand so steady that the water barely rippled. Today was the company's IPO celebration gala. This morning, he said he needed to accompany an important investor to discuss future cooperation and rushed out. I immediately sensed something was wrong. What was wrong? Director leaned forward, pressing for details. He didn't bring the legal department or his assistant. And when he left, a discarded document fell out of his briefcase, a large sum remittance slip for a transfer to an offshore gallery. I pulled a visibly folded bank receipt from my bag and pushed it across the table. Of course, he hadn't dropped it. I had pieced it together from his shredder in his study. He thought he had covered his tracks perfectly. But he didn't know that my professional instinct had sounded the alarm the day I discovered $5,000 missing from our unused contingency fund account. From that day on, I was no longer his wife, I was the auditor here to investigate his accounts. Director glanced at the amount on the slip, his brows furrowing. Based solely on this, it only suggests he might be hiding something from you, perhaps transferring marital assets. Why are you so certain he's laundering money, or even attempting to escape? This was crucial for determining the nature of the crime. I lowered my eyes, my voice carrying just the right amount of tremor and concern. He's been acting very erratically lately, often hiding in his study late at night, operating offshore accounts on another encrypted laptop, with English interfaces on the screen. When I asked, he'd say it was an offshore structure for tax evasion for the company. I'm in finance, I know how deep these waters run. But today, he lied to me, saying he was with an investor, when he was actually misappropriating company funds to buy a house for his mistress. Director, I now strongly suspect he's transferring assets through underground banking. These words were 7 parts truth, 3 parts fabrication, all a ploy. He did have another computer, but it was specifically for storing private photos and chat logs of his mistress. He did operate it late at night, but that was to clear her shopping cart or play a few hands of online Texas M. There was no offshore structure, NLY his private desires. I had seen all of this clearly through his cloud sync backup. But I absolutely couldn't tell the truth. I needed to muddy the waters, to force the economic unit to investigate. Director's face became serious, his fingers lightly tapping the table. Do you have any leads on the recipient of the funds, or that woman? Yes, I nodded. I checked the corporate registration information. The legal representative of that gallery is Annie. You investigated quite thoroughly? Director seemed surprised. I'm a certified public accountant. I worked as an audit manager at one of the big accounting firms for several years, I calmly stated, revealing my identity. This was my biggest trump card. Director fell silent. A CEO of a publicly listed company, morally corrupt, engaging in suspicious financial activities, with unexplained capital flows. And his wife, a senior auditor, officially reporting him for official misconduct. This case met the criteria for an official investigation. Ms. Lila, the leads you provided are crucial. We will immediately freeze the relevant accounts and conduct an investigation. During this time, to prevent Ethan's accomplices or creditors from causing trouble, you will temporarily stay in a safe house we've arranged. I'll cooperate. But I have only one demand. Tell me. I want to immediately file for divorce and proceed with asset division. My tone was resolute, without a trace of hesitation. I will not bear his debts, nor do I want to be complicit with him. This marriage, I am ending. Director looked at me, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Don't worry, the law will protect your legitimate rights and interests. As soon as I left the interrogation room, my phone vibrated nonstop. A text message popped up, filled with venom. Lila, you jinx. How dare you call the police and get my brother arrested? Are you trying to kill our whole family? My mom won't forgive you. The sender was Chloe, Ethan's sister, a trust fund kid who only knew how to ask for money. I expressionlessly swiped away the message and blocked her. The real show was yet to come. The next second, my phone rang loudly, Eleanor flashing on the screen. Lila, you ungrateful wretch. Ethan fed you well, and now you're calling the police on him? Are you trying to send him to prison so you can swallow our family's assets? I'm telling you, no way. I held the phone away from my ear, waiting for her to catch her breath, then calmly replied. Mom, don't be so quick to defend your son. You'd best check your retirement fund account and see if there's any money left. The other end of the line instantly fell silent, as if someone had choked her. You. What do you mean? Ethan transferred all $5 million of your retirement money to buy that villa for a woman named Annie. Oh, and by the way, the property purchase agreement only has Annie's name on it. That's their love nest. It has nothing to do with you, and nothing to do with Ethan. He gave it to someone else. My tone was calm, yet I could imagine the priceless look on Eleanor's money-grubbing face on the other end. You're full of it. That's my money. He wouldn't dare. She shrieked, her voice trembling, followed by a frantic rummaging sound as she searched for something. Go to the bank and get a transaction statement, and you'll know if I'm lying. I hung up, taking a deep breath. The heavy burden on my chest finally eased a little. Ethan, did you think your mom only loved you? Wrong. She loved money most. Now that you've touched her lifeblood, she's your biggest creditor. I settled into the designated hotel arranged by the economic unit. Plainclothes officers were guarding the door, and my electronic devices were monitored. I understood clearly that this was for my protection, but also to prevent me from colluding or absconding. Until the case was finalized, I, as a key witness, had to stay put. Just as I intended. I needed a quiet place to PR. Ethan's next big gift. The next morning, Director arrived with his team. With him were two young men wearing glasses and carrying laptop bags, clearly experts from the economic unit's tech department, specializing in auditing. Ms. Lila, we interrogated Ethan and Annie all night. Ethan was very stubborn, adamantly claiming the $50 million was a temporary loan, saying it was to help a friend with cash flow and would be repaid in a few days. One of the tech department officers pushed up his glasses and stared at me. Annie also said it was a private loan from Ethan for her gallery's cash flow. If it's classified as misappropriation of funds, the crime would be much lighter as long as the money is repaid. A loan? I snorted coldly. Her gallery is nothing but a shell. What would it use to repay? I pulled out a black encrypted hard drive from my bag and slammed it on the table. This is the private ledger I extracted from his cloud drive. It contains not only his and Annie's transaction records, but also full evidence of forged purchase contracts and fictitious project expenses he used to cover that $50 million shortfall. He even abused his authority to make 3 fictitious capital injections into any front gallery. The eyes of the 3 men instantly changed. Director's face darkened, and the 2 tech officers immediately opened their laptops, connected the hard drive, and gasped as they looked at the dense data on the screen. Misappropriation and embezzlement are 2 different things. The former might just be a violation, but the latter is making fraudulent books for illegal possession, an utter economic crime that would ensure a long prison sentence. In the chat logs, Annie complained that her gallery was about to close and she had no money for bags. To coax her, Ethan fabricated an art investment project and directly transferred money from the company account. Like an outsider, I calmly dissected my husband's crimes. He laundered company money into the gallery, then it became Annie's property and luxury goods. This isn't a loan, this is theft, blatant embezzlement. Director, as the CEO of a publicly listed company, stealing from his own company, I don't need to explain the nature of this, do I? Director slammed his hand on the table, his face as dark as a thundercloud. His audacity is incredible. The tech officers immediately removed the hard drive. Director, the chain of evidence is complete. Immediately freeze all accounts involved in the case. Everyone went out to work, leaving just Director and me in the room. He lit a cigarette, but didn't smoke it, sighing as he looked at me. Ms. Lila, the past few years. It must have been tough, hasn't it? I shook my head, a bitter smile on my face. What's a grievance? I'm an auditor, I don't tolerate any misconduct. I couldn't stand by and watch him hollow out the company. I couldn't let the hard-earned money of tens of thousands of shareholders pay for his romantic escapades. I said this with a clear conscience. I married Ethan not just for love, but for admiration. I admired his masterful manipulation in the capital market, and his adherence to professional ethics even in the world of fame and fortune. But now, for his own selfish desires, he had personally shattered that illusion. Ms. Lila, as long as the evidence is solid, no matter who is involved, the economic unit will investigate thoroughly. Director gave me his assurance. I nodded, picked up my bag, and prepared to leave. My hand on the doorknob, I paused, as if after a fierce internal struggle, then slowly turned around. I bit my lip, my eyes flickering. Director, there's another situation. I'm afraid I might be overthinking things. Go ahead. Dad has an older brother named Andrew, who claims to be an elite from overseas venture capital. But looking at Ethan's chat logs, he often sent the company's unreleased quarterly reports and MA deal drafts to Annie, saying it was for her brother to review. I carefully chose my words, feigning ignorance, that seemed particularly interested in our company's core technical parameters, and always asked Ethan when the announcements would be made. At the time, I thought he just wanted to show off, but now that I think about it, during that period, the company's stock price fluctuated wildly, and it was precisely shorted several times. I'm afraid Ethan, to fill that $50 million hole, might have been used by them to leak insider information. By the end, my voice choked up, and my eyes turned red. These tears were a third feigned, two-thirds genuine. I was truly crying for the once spirited and principled Ethan, who had now fallen so far for a woman. Director's face changed dramatically, he shot up to his feet. The warmth in his eyes instantly faded, replaced by professional sharpness and severity. Leaking insider information? Collaborating to short sell? Which institution is that Andrew from? This instantly changed the nature of the case. From an economic case of embezzlement, it directly escalated to a major financial crime involving collusion with foreign entities and market manipulation. Ethan, no one can save you now. As soon as I returned to the hotel, wails of despair could be heard downstairs. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, along with Chloe, was blocking the hotel entrance and throwing a tantrum. Lila, you heartless monster. You're framing your own husband to monopolize the family fortune. Get out here. Everyone, come quickly. The wealthy daughter-in-law is plotting murder for money. Her loud voice sounded like she wished it would draw everyone on the street. The security guards tried to block her, but she lay down on the ground, throwing a tantrum, nothing like the dignified socialite she usually pretended to be. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, swirling a wine glass, watching the scene below like a spectacle. My lawyer knocked and came in, a helpless low okay on his face. Ms. Lila, should I call the police to get rid of them? No need. I took a sip of wine. Let her make a scene. The louder she makes a scene now, the harder she'll cry later. I pulled out a stack of papers from a folder and handed them to the lawyer. Mr. Daniel, please make a trip and hand this to the old woman yourself. It was a copy of the property deed and several bank transfer receipts. The transfer account clearly bore Eleanor's name, that was her life savings, accumulated over a lifetime. And on the property purchase agreement, the buyer's column clearly stated Annie. Let her see clearly what her filial son did with her life savings. The lawyer went downstairs and handed over the documents. Eleanor was still trying to argue, but when she saw the familiar bank account number and that unfamiliar name, she froze as if paralyzed. The cursing stopped abruptly. She stared intently at the papers, her hands trembling like someone with Parkinson's. One moment, an arrogant shrew, the next, she crumpled as if her spine had been removed. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed onto the ground, emitting a pig-like squeal. My money! That damned little vixen! That's my retirement money! Her cries were far more genuine than her earlier curses. I sneered and pulled the curtains closed. The farce downstairs should end now. What I gave Eleanor was a truth that would make her wish she were dead. What I gave the investigation team was the real downfall that would ensure Ethan would serve a long prison sentence. As soon as the lead regarding Andrew's suspected malicious short-selling emerged, the nature of the case changed instantly. The City Economic Unit and the SEC enforcement quickly coordinated, directly establishing a joint force for major crimes. Ethan was placed under criminal detention and held in the maximum security unit of the detention center. Because it involved endangering financial security and collusion with foreign entities, ATT. Warning visits were denied, and bail applications were outright rejected. The man who once chatted and laughed at lavish parties was now merely suspect 9527. I knew in my heart that his life was completely ruined. Regardless of the final verdict, simply being embroiled in a scandal of this magnitude would land him on the blacklist with a lifetime ban from the financial market, which is tantamount to a death sentence in the financial world. For someone who valued his reputation above all else, becoming a pariah was worse than bankruptcy. These past few days, my phone had almost exploded. The company's shareholders, Ethan's business partners, and even distant relatives I barely knew, all panicked. Some wanted insider information, others wanted me to withdraw the lawsuit, fearing that if Ethan fell, their money would go down the drain. I simply put my phone on airplane mode. I gave no one any special treatment. Until a black Maybach stopped downstairs at my hotel. It was Mr. Williams' private car. The driver respectfully invited me into the car. Madam, Mr. William would like to see you. The meeting took place at Mr. William Retreat. Having not seen him for only half a year, The once dominant business magnate seemed to have been drained of his vitality, his hair completely white. "I know everything." Mr. Williams' voice was hoarse, yet still carried an air of authority. "It is a misfortune for our family to have such a prodigal son. I failed as a father." I paused, surprised that he wasn't there to accuse me. "I don't ask you to forgive him. He made fraudulent books and kept a mistress, he reaps what he sows." Mr. Williams stared at me, his gaze piercing. "I only ask you one thing, concerning the livelihoods of tens of thousands of employees across the entire group. Is that Andrew really short-selling the company? Was truly involved?" I was silent for 2 seconds, then changed my address. "Mr. William, I." That single Mr. William severed the last thread of familial connection between us. Meeting his gaze, my face was frank but resigned. "Mr. William, I don't have definitive proof, but I saw their chat logs. Annie constantly bragged about how powerful her brother was on Wall Street. Ethan, to show off in front of her, and also to seek some so-called insider information, frequently sent her the company's unreleased quarterly reports. Ethan initially wanted to refuse, but he couldn't resist her manipulating with sweet talk, telling him that just a little inside tip would allow them to make a quick profit with major institutional investors and cover the misappropriated company funds. As you know, he was desperate to cover the books then, practically resorting to desperate measures. I worry he was used as a pawn without even knowing it, ultimately not only harming himself but dragging the entire group down with him." These words were 9 parts truth, 1 part fabrication. Mr. William closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. He knew that for the sake of the group, his son could not be protected, nor should he be. In truth, I knew Andrew's background. At best, he was a financial con man who couldn't make it on Wall Street and came back to China to bluff and deceive. His so-called inquiries were merely attempts to extract insider information from Ethan for stock trading, but with a little artistic embellishment from me, the nature of it changed. Ethan already had skeletons in his closet. At such a critical juncture, any entanglement with foreign capital would be blown up into deadly poison. Mr. William, having navigated the business world for half a lifetime, knew all too well the weight of the accusation of colluding with foreign investors to short sell. Even if there was no conclusive evidence in the end, just the suspicion alone would be enough to have the stock price and provoke regulatory authorities to investigate the group from top to bottom. To save the group, Ethan had to be sacrificed. "I understand." After a long silence, Mr. William let out another deep sigh, looking like he'd collapsed. "He reaps what he sows. Lila, the Gu family has wronged you these past few years." He tremblingly pulled out a check and pushed it towards me. The number of zeros made my head spin. "This money is enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Consider it my compensation to you on behalf of that scoundrel." I didn't even glance at it, pushing it straight back. "Mr. William, I find this money tainted. I don't want money, and I don't want shares. All I want is an immediate divorce and a complete debt division. Ethan's bad debts, he shouldn't even think of touching a single penny of mine." I looked directly into his eyes, enunciating each word. "What I want is my integrity, my freedom, and a complete break with the Gu family." A flicker of sadness passed through Mr. Williams' eyes, and he finally nodded. "Very well, as you wish. The lawyers will handle the paperwork tomorrow." As soon as I returned to the hotel, my phone suddenly vibrated, director flashing on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. "Ms. Lila, the task force has made a major breakthrough." Director's voice was frighteningly serious. "That has been identified. He's not some venture capital elite at all, he's a hunter for a notorious short-selling firm on Wall Street." My hand trembled, and I nearly dropped the phone. Oh my God. I only wanted to pin a scandal on him, but I didn't expect the scandal was already on his head. Was this blind luck? Had I stumbled upon the real culprit? Not only that, the tech department recovered Ethan's cloud data. He did indeed send the company's core technical parameters and unreleased financial drafts to Andrew. And that firm released a short-selling report targeting your company yesterday. The data source was precisely what Ethan leaked. I stood in the wind, a chill ran down my spine, yet I couldn't help but laugh. Things were completely out of control. I thought I was lying. But with a casual pointer, I uncovered an insider who wanted to bleed the company dry. Andrew was not some brother-in-law, he was a scythe to prey on investors. And was the one who handed him the knife. The gravity of this crime was immense. The entire economic unit erupted into chaos, the case was immediately escalated, and even the city leadership was alerted. Ethan was no longer just an economic criminal suspected of embezzlement, but a serious offender suspected of leaking trade secrets and market manipulation. These were offenses subject to cumulative penalties, destined for a long prison sentence. I heard Ethan went completely insane in the detention center. He banged on the iron bars, protesting his innocence, saying he didn't know Andrew was short-selling, that he just wanted to show off, just wanted to fill the deficit. Unfortunately, with ironclad evidence, no one believed his lies. An executive who misappropriated company funds and made fraudulent books for his mistress, his credibility was long gone. Now that he was found to have sent core secrets to a short-selling firm, who would believe he was innocent? His greed and stupidity were exhibits in court. And, as the key go-between, not only swindled Ethan's money but also cost him his life. That kind of hothouse flower had never seen the intensity of an economic crimes unit interrogation. In less than 2 hours, she confessed everything, a snotty, tearful mess. She truly didn't know anything about short selling. She was a complete idiot, thinking she was helping her brother with business research. She confessed how she secretly photographed Ethan's documents and recorded conversations. Andrew taught her that as long as she took photos of those incomprehensible reports and sent them, she could get Hermes bags. And she really did it, even thinking she was quite capable. Even more ridiculous, to show off that she had a financial big shot, she even sent Andrew photos of Ethan handling bus. Ines in bed. In the background of the photo, the core data on the computer screen was clearly visible. This was the most fatal ironclad evidence. The chain of evidence perfectly closed. Andrew set the trap, Annie handed the knife, and Ethan, the patsy, walked right into it himself. And I, the wronged wife who was jointly bullied by them, instead became the unsung hero who cleaned up the mess and saved the company. Director specifically invited me to his office. This time, his eyes held a new respect. Ms. Lila, thanks to you. If you hadn't reported it in time, this enormous sum of money, once it left the country, would have been next to impossible to recover. Given the immense value of the case and the crucial evidence you provided, in accordance with relevant regulations, we will apply for the maximum whistleblower reward for you. Director handed me a document. Additionally, the SEC will also commend you. Recognition. I looked at the number, but felt no ripple of emotion in my heart. I only found it absurd. I had only wanted to ruin him, to make him lose everything. Yet, not only did I emerge unscathed, but I also financially benefited from exposing her husband and became an embodiment of justice? The world is truly ironic. What about Ethan? I pushed the document back, asking the question I cared about most. Embezzlement, misappropriation of funds, insider trading, leaking trade secrets. Director counted on his fingers. Although some of his leaks were passive, the consequences were extremely severe. Charged with multiple offenses, he's looking at a minimum of 10 years, possibly life in prison. A minimum of 10 years. For a 32-year-old financial rising star at the peak of his career, this was tantamount to a death sentence. I knew Ethan's life was completely done for. The divorce papers arrived quickly. Ethan signed them in the detention center, his handwriting so scrawled it was almost illegible. The lawyer also brought a note, which he had someone del. Iver. Lila, you're ruthless. Just those 5 words. I looked at the paper, as if I could see those eyes behind bars, filled with hatred and despair. I won, completely and utterly. But looking at the empty house, I only felt tired, a bone-deep weariness that seeped from my very bones. Before I could catch my breath, a commotion erupted at the door. The hotel security called my internal line, their voice apologetic. Ms. Lila, there's an old woman downstairs, claiming to be Annie's mother. She insists on seeing you, we can't stop her. As soon as I went downstairs, a well-dressed but haggard old woman rushed towards me. With a thud, she knelt down in front of me, in full view of everyone in the lobby. Ms. Lila, all the fault lies with Annie. Please, I beg you, be merciful and forgive her. She cried, a snotty, tearful mess, banging her head repeatedly. She's still young, she was tricked. She can't go to prison. I watched coldly, not moving, not helping her up. Ma'am, begging me is useless. You should beg the judge, or those shareholders Ethan ruined. My voice was colder than the air conditioning in the lobby. Sympathy? When she was spending Ethan's misappropriated company funds on bags and cars, why didn't she think she was innocent? When she was secretly photographing documents and sending them to her brother, why didn't she think about the consequences? Since she enjoyed the thrill of ill-gotten gains, she must bear the cost of imprisonment. You are useful. If you would issue a letter of leniency, if you would just say it was a loan and not fraud, she could get a lighter sentence. The old woman clutched my pants leg tightly. Why should I forgive a criminal who destroyed my family and tried to ruin my company? I looked down at her, as if watching a joke. The old woman grew desperate and shouted, because she's carrying a child of the Gu family. The child is innocent. Do you want this child to be born in prison? Innocent? I suddenly raised my voice, my RDS trembling. 6 months ago, to help Ethan rush the audit report before the IPO, I worked overtime for a month straight, working myself to the point of a major hemorrhage. Where was Ethan then? He was in Paris, celebrating your darling daughter's birthday. I pointed to my flat stomach, and finally, tears couldn't be held back. When my child was aborted, he was cutting Annie's birthday cake. Now you're telling me the child is innocent? My child was killed by the two of them working together. 6 months ago, to reconcile those complex offshore accounts, I had worked 3 consecutive all-nighters. On that last night, severe abdominal pain struck, and blood stained my white business suit. When my colleagues rushed me to the operating room, I was in so much pain I nearly passed out. My child was lost on that cold operating table. And at that time, where was Ethan, my nominal husband? He had turned off his phone and was under the Eiffel in Paris, celebrating Annie's romantic birthday. His social media feed was full of photos of them kissing. This was a festering wound in my heart that I had kept hidden, showing no one. The old woman stood with her mouth agape, staring at my flat stomach as if she'd seen a ghost, unable to utter a single word. When your daughter was squandering my husband's money, did she think that was my hard-earned money? When was having a good time in Paris, did he think about his wife hovering between life and death on the operating table? Now you want to talk about forgiveness? Why should I? I sneered, my words piercing her heart like nails. Get out. What the law decides is up to the judge, but to me, she will always be a murderer. The security guards escorted the disheveled and distraught old woman away. The lobby returned to quiet, but I felt an intense cold, a chill that seeped from my very bones. Outside, the sky was overcast, mirroring my mood. Ethan, do you see clearly now? This is the woman you abandoned everything for, and her greedy, foolish family. This is your so-called true love, cheap and ridiculous. You thought you were manipulating capital, but in reality, you were just a pawn being manipulated. And I was merely the one who pulled the rug out from under you when you got carried away. Half a month later, the district's economic division convened. The trial was not open to the public due to commercial confidentiality. As a representative of the victimized company and a key witness, I sat in the witness box. In the defendant's dock, Ethan wore a yellow detention center vest and had a shaved head. The once meticulously groomed financial elite was gone, replaced by a hunchback, middle-aged convict with dull eyes. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged 10 years, his face a picture of utter defeat. When he saw me, his lifeless eyes shifted. His gaze was incredibly complex, remorse, pleading, and a hint of undisguised malice. The prosecutor began reading the indictment. Although it was found that he did not directly profit from the short-selling firm and was misled into criminal acts, his actions as a high-ranking executive of a publicly listed company had already crossed the line of criminal law, given the economic losses and social impact they caused. The defendant, Ethan, as a company executive, took advantage of his position to illegally appropriate a massive amount of company assets for personal gain, thus committing embezzlement. He violated regulations by leaking insider information, a particularly serious offense, thus committing insider trading. He misappropriated company funds for illegal activities, thus committing misappropriation of funds. Each count of the indictment struck like a heavy hammer, shattering his former pride. He kept his head bowed the entire time, silent as a mute. Finally, the presiding judge looked at me, witness, as the defendant's spouse and a representative of the victimized entity. Do you have any additional statements? Are you willing to issue a letter of forgiveness? The air in the entire courtroom seemed to freeze. Ethan suddenly lifted his head, staring intensely at me. His lips trembled, his eyes filled with a final glimmer of hope, as if I were his only lifeline. I do not accept any form of mediation, nor will I issue a letter of forgiveness. I request that the court impose a severe sentence in accordance with the law. Furthermore, I am formally submitting a civil complaint to the court, requesting a divorce decree and the division of debts. Ethan's body swayed violently, as if his soul had been sucked out. The light in his eyes was completely extinguished. A month later, the verdict was delivered. Ethan was found guilty of multiple offenses and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Concurrently, the SEC issued an administrative penalty decision, imposing a lifetime ban from the securities market on him. Overnight, the new power player who wielded immense influence in the financial world and was adored by countless people became a prisoner, wearing a prison uniform with a shaved head. His name fell from the rich list, permanently nailed to the industry blacklist's pillar of shame. For a man who valued fame and fortune above all else, stripping him of all his prestige and chance at a comeback was more cruel than outright killing him. I knew that Ethan's life was completely ruined. Annie, as an accomplice, was given a suspended sentence due to her pregnancy, but because of her involvement in money laundering, all her assets were seized, and she was burdened with massive joint and several debts. Her longed-for dream of marrying into wealth shattered into countless shards of glass. As for Andrew, Interpol had already issued a red for his arrest. As the short-selling firm came under investigation, this sensational insider trading case that rocked the financial world finally came to a tragic end. Not only did I emerge unscathed, but I also received a substantial whistleblower reward jointly issued by the SEC and the company. When Taylor handed me the check, he said with emotion, "Ms. Lila, you've earned this. You've recovered hundreds of millions in losses for the country." I looked at the long string of zeros on the check and felt as if it burned my hand. I had sent my husband to prison and, in return, gained financial freedom for the rest of my life. "Director, I don't feel right holding this money," I said, pushing the check back slightly. "I only did it to protect myself, not for any grander reason." Director smiled, then firmly pressed it back into my hand. "Take it. It's a system-level reward, and it's also your foundation for a new beginning." I paused in silence, then finally accepted it. This money, I earned it with half my life. The divorce decree arrived swiftly. Because was serving his sentence, the court followed an expedited procedure. Ethan and I would henceforth go our separate ways, legally unbound from each other. I resigned from my job and sold the marital home, which was steeped in memories. The day I left the city was overcast and rainy. I dragged my suitcase, taking one last look at the towering skyscrapers in the financial district. This place once held my youth and dreams, now, only chaos and wreckage remained. The family car was parked by the roadside. The window rolled down, revealing Mr. William. The once indomitable business magnate now looked like an old man nearing the end of his days. "Lila, would you like the driver to take you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I shook my head, polite but distant. "No, thank you, Mr. William. I want to walk alone." He moved his lips as if to apologize, but ultimately just sighed, "Take care." I walked away without looking back. I settled in a coastal town in the south, using the reward money to acquire a beachfront bookstore. Watching the sea, listening to the wind, I tried to heal my festering wounds with this slow-paced life. I deactivated my social media accounts, changed my phone number, and cut off all ties with that circle. I thought that as long as I hid far enough, the past couldn't catch up to me. But the peaceful days didn't last long. A call from an unknown number shattered it all. I thought it was a delivery service and answered casually. On the other end, there was only hurried breathing, conveying an ominous feeling. "Who is this?" I asked. "Lila." A trembling voice came from the other end. It was Chloe, her voice filled with fear. "My brother. Something happened to my brother." She was sobbing uncontrollably. The book in my hand fell to the floor with a thud, and my heart skipped a beat. "He sharpened a toothbrush in prison and stabbed it into his major artery. Lila, he's dead." My mind went blank with a buzzing sound, like a kite with a broken string. My whole being felt empty. My phone slipped onto the carpet, and Chloe's shrill sobs became fragmented. "They found him during the morning rounds. Blood everywhere. Couldn't save him." Chloe shrieked hysterically on the other end. "Lila, are you satisfied now? Sending him to prison wasn't enough, you had to drive him to his death, didn't you? You wicked woman." The vicious words rained down on me like hail, yet I felt nothing. My eardrums buzzed, and all sound in the world vanished. Ethan was dead. The man who was so arrogant and domineering in business, who had once cherished me only to cruelly discard me, was dead. I hung up the phone, curled into a ball in the corner of the sofa, shivering with cold. I hated him to my core. I wanted him to lose everything, to rot in jail and atone for his sins. I only wanted justice, but he used his death to deliver the most devastating blow. My chest felt stuffed with wet cotton, suffocating. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I didn't know if I was crying for him, or for the naive past version of myself who had loved him. Night had fallen completely, and the sound of ocean waves echoed outside the window. I wiped my face dry and aged through my bag for the crumpled note. It was given to me by my lawyer, his last words written in the detention center. "Lila, you're ruthless. At the time, I thought it was a challenge, but looking at it now, it was pure despair. With his life, he told me that in this business war, there were no winners. He lost his life, and I won only loneliness. Did I win? Looking at the haggard woman in the mirror, I gave a bitter smile. It was a Pyrrhic victory. This revenge had consumed all my love, hatred, and youth. I didn't attend the funeral. Ethan's family wanted to tear me apart. I found a deserted stretch of beach and threw the first watch he ever gave me into the sea. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, it was all over. Life had to go on. My beachfront bookstore opened its doors. Every day, I enjoyed the smell of coffee and watched the tides ebb and flow. Although it didn't earn much, it offered peace, free from schemes and deception. I started learning to surf and made a few local friends. Time was the best medicine. The soul-wrenching pain slowly transformed into a dull ache. It wasn't until half a year later, while buying fish at the fish market, that I ran into someone I knew. It was Annie. She was carrying a child on her back, haggling with the fish vendor. Because of her suspended sentence, she had hidden away in this small place. The socialite adorned in designer brands was gone. The woman before me wore a pilled t-shirt, her hair disheveled, her face pale and drawn. When she saw me, the fish in her hand almost dropped to the ground. Her eyes held terror and shame. She wanted to flee, but the whimpering child in her arms held her back. Annie, I called out. Her back stiffened. She tightened her arms around the child and slowly turned to face me. I walked over, looking at the small, frail child in her arms. How old is the child? Looking at that innocent little life, the hatred in my heart suddenly faded. Just over a year old, he just started calling me mama. She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. That's good, I nodded. Raise him well. Just as I was about to leave, she suddenly called out to me, tears streaming down her face. Ms. Lila. I'm so sorry. It was my greed that led me astray. I shouldn't have been tempted by that money. I shouldn't have harmed Ethan, or you. Enough, I interrupted her confession. I will never forgive you in this lifetime, because my child isn't coming back, and neither is Ethan. I looked at the distant horizon, my voice calm. But I don't hate you anymore. Hating someone pitiable is just too exhausting. The man I had hated to my core had turned to ash. My hatred no longer had a target. Don't let the child know about the adult's dirty laundry, let him grow up innocent. I left her with those words, picked up my fish, and walked into the bustling crowd. Behind me, I heard Annie's suppressed sobs. I didn't look back. The sea breeze blew, carrying a salty tang, and scattering the old loves and hates. Days turned into weeks, and my bookstore gained renown in the small town. When I wasn't busy, I'd go to the beach to collect seashells or try my hand at baking. The anxiety of constantly chasing performance reports felt like a distant memory. I also tried to open my heart and welcome new people into my life. Noah, a law professor at a local university, was a regular at my bookstore. He was gentle and cultured, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, always speaking in a calm, unhurried manner that put people at ease. He knew I was divorced and what I had been through. But he never pressed for details, simply saying, the past is experience, not a burden. I love the person you are now. His words melted the ice in my heart like a warm current. We dated like any ordinary couple, watching the sunrise by the sea, going to the grocery store together. This mundane, simple happiness almost made me forget the dramatic past. Until one weekend, when I went to his place for dinner, I was looking for a book to read in his study. From a thick legal treatise, a faded old photo slipped out. The photo showed two spirited young men in graduation gowns, arms slung over each other's shoulders, laughing brightly. On the left was a young Noah, and the man with striking features on the right was unmistakably Ethan. My hand trembled, the photo dropped to the floor, and my blood ran cold. Noah walked in with fruit, saw the photo on the floor, and his eyes flickered. That's my best friend from college, he said, picking up the photo, his tone a little unnatural. He was very talented, a shame he passed so young. His name was Ethan, wasn't it? My voice trembled. Noah's hand froze in midair. How could there be so many coincidences in the world? He was Ethan's best friend, yet he showed up in this remote town and fell in love with me, of all people? You too. We were college bunkmates, Noah sighed, no longer concealing the truth. Ethan was incredibly brilliant, but also extremely arrogant. He never respected anyone in his life. You were the only one who truly brought him down. It felt as if a knife had pierced my heart. So, you came here, you approached me, all for him? Are you here to atone for his sins, or for him too? Noah opened a drawer and pulled out a letter. This is what he mailed me before he went to prison, it's his farewell letter. The letter mentioned neither the company nor money, it was all about you. I unfolded the letter, and familiar handwriting appeared before my eyes. He said he was thoroughly defeated, and that turning you from a gentle woman into a vengeful one was the greatest sin of his life. He said if he had a second chance, he would never touch the money or people he shouldn't have. He knew he couldn't endure the psychological blow, and he had no face left to see you. Noah's voice was low. At the end of the letter, he asked me, if is ever alone in the future, please take care of her for me. Don't let her suffer anymore. I clutched the letter, my knuckles white. So, this sudden happiness, this gift from the heavens, was actually the last bit of compensation from the man I hated to my core, bought with his life. What was this? Even in death, he wouldn't let me go? I admit I came here with a mission at first. Noah held my hand, his gaze clear. But my love for you is real. Your resilience, your intelligence, the way you still embrace life despite your wounds, it all captivates me. This has nothing to do with Ethan. It's me, Noah, who wants to spend my life with you. He looked steadily at me, awaiting my decision. Don't let his mistakes punish our future. Give me a chance, okay? I looked at him, and for a moment, I seemed to see the spirited young Ethan from years ago. The wind blew through the bookstore's wind chimes, making them tinkle. I lowered my head, unsure how to choose. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.